Chapter 1. The Loser in the Shadows. Living on the sidelines of someone else's success. My name is Emma Rivers. I'm 32, and if it weren't for my last name, hardly anyone would notice my existence at the Rivers family's formal dinners. While the rest of our California clan clinked glasses to celebrate new contracts and multi-million-dollar investments, I preferred to keep to the shadows, usually hovering near the buffet or somewhere deep in the garden, where I could, if only for a moment, forget the endless parade of faces flaunting their luck like Olympic gold. We lived in Fairfield, California, not San Francisco, of course, but a place where every other person called themselves a startup founder, and every third one dreamed of going public. My father was a respected surgeon at a private clinic. My mother taught art history, and my older sister Claire was the crown jewel of our dynasty. A Stanford grad, founder of a booming marketing agency, a regular on all the 30 under 30 lists. Claire always did everything right. Best schools, perfect connections, flawless social media photos. Even her failures looked like they'd been personally approved by Forbes. Me? After college, I found myself stuck in ordinary life. Teaching English at the local community college, renting a tiny apartment in a building with peeling steps, and tending to flowers on my balcony that more often died than bloomed. My achievements weren't worthy of family stories or public toasts. At family gatherings, they'd ask how my courses were going, as if I was still tutoring kids from Craigslist ads. Of course, I had friends and my own small world. Books, my dog Marvin, and a never-ending dream of writing a novel that I never seemed to have the time or courage for. I didn't complain. I actually liked knowing that if everything suddenly collapsed, I could piece myself back together. There was nothing in my life that didn't truly belong to me, but sometimes it still stung, especially when I saw how easily things seemed to fall into place for Claire. Things I had to struggle for over weeks. Promotions, new projects, recognition. She drew attention like a magnet while I seemed to fade into the background, becoming invisible even to myself. Another Sunday dinner proved especially suffocating. The smell of fresh bread in my parents' house, fire in the fireplace, silverware and fine china on the table. I sat between Uncle James, who liked to boast about his stock market wins over dinner, and my cousin Bree, the one who'd never worked a day in her life but ran a blog about female self-development. "So, Emma, another semester wrapped up?" Uncle James asked with a restrained smile, as if I didn't know he'd already forgotten what college I taught at. "And you still have the same cat?" Bree snarked, convinced that having a dog was also some kind of failure for a woman over 30. I nodded, smiled, sipped water instead of wine, and thought that if the chandelier crashed down right now, no one would even notice. Behind my calm exterior hid another Emma, the one who knew that someday things would change. I'd watched the world go by for far too long, but no one expected that the changes would start with a tiny detail that had stayed out of sight even for me. The next day started as usual. Morning coffee, a stack of notebooks to grade, messages from colleagues. Only this time, something odd, a random detail. Amid the pile of routine emails, one stood out with no sender, subject line reading, "Just for you." There was a file attached. I would have deleted the email right away if not for the irresistible intrigue in the text. "You deserve to know what's behind the facade of success." Honestly, I thought it was a dumb joke, spam, or a mistake. But I opened the file, and when a series of scans appeared on the screen, bank statements, contracts, screenshots from email accounts, my heart clenched with a sense of dread. The documents all referenced Claire's name and accounts in banks our family had never mentioned. I sat at my desk, feeling the world as I knew it turning fragile. Something was wrong. At that moment, I had no idea that this email would spark a chain of events that would call not only someone else's success into question, but my own understanding of myself. That evening, I wandered the empty streets with Marvin for a long time, unable to shake the feeling that my entire life was about to turn from background noise into the center of someone else's scandal. For the first time in years, I realized I could no longer hide in plain sight, and maybe, just maybe, this was my chance to stop living on the sidelines, to step out of the shadows, and for the first time, play by my own rules. Chapter 2. The Accidental Discovery That Changes Everything. There are moments in life when the ordinary shatters, revealing something dark and glittering beneath the surface, a secret that changes the rules of the game forever. For me, it happened on an unremarkable Wednesday, somewhere between the end of my morning lecture and the faint promise of a free afternoon. The email from the night before haunted me, burning at the edges of my thoughts. I couldn't let it go, but neither could I bring myself to confront my sister. Instead, I buried myself in work, sorting essays, sipping bad coffee in the faculty lounge, trying to pretend that the world hadn't suddenly become unpredictable. But the universe has a way of nudging you forward, even when you'd rather hide. My chance came as a fluke, one of those moments that would seem scripted if it weren't so painfully real. I was searching for an old lesson plan on my college computer. The system kept freezing, groaning under the weight of a dozen open tabs and forgotten downloads. Frustrated, I began cleaning up my files, deleting one useless folder after another. That's when I noticed something odd, a zip file labeled Private Claire. It wasn't mine. I'd never seen it before. At first, I assumed it was a student's prank or maybe a backup from another instructor. Still, the name tugged at me. I hesitated, fingers hovering above the mouse. Curiosity beat out caution. I opened the folder. Inside were dozens of PDFs, spreadsheets, even a few scanned handwritten notes. At first glance, it looked like a jumble of unrelated documents. Property records, wire transfers, contracts between shell companies, names that meant nothing to me. But as I scrolled, patterns emerged. Every file traced back to one person, my sister, Claire. There were dates that lined up suspiciously well with her recent business trips. Transfers routed through offshore accounts, fake invoices from consulting firms that didn't seem to exist. There was even an internal memo from a law firm, one of the biggest in California, flagging potential exposure if certain deals came to light. My breath caught as the truth began to crystallize. Claire was involved in something much bigger than I'd ever imagined. Not just clever real estate deals or aggressive tax planning, something risky, possibly illegal. But why would these files be here, on a random faculty computer? That's when my stomach twisted. I hadn't logged out of my college account the night before, and my computer had been acting up since I opened that strange email. A new window popped up on my screen, a chat box, blinking insistently. Unknown user. Find what you were looking for, Emma. I froze. Someone was watching. My hands shook as I tried to close the window, but the mouse wouldn't respond. Unknown user. This is just the beginning. If you want to know the truth, follow the instructions in the next email. Don't trust anyone, especially family. The chat box vanished, leaving only the echo of those words and a tight, growing fear in my chest. And that's when I noticed something else, an audio file quietly downloading itself to my desktop. Its name was simple. Listen now, Claire.mp3. I stared at the screen, pulse pounding, knowing with a certainty deeper than dread that nothing in my life would ever be the same. In that moment, I realized someone had set this all up. I wasn't the hunter. I was being hunted. Chapter 3. The Secret Game. When the truth is more dangerous than lies. If I'd thought curiosity was my greatest weakness, I was wrong. It was the secret itself. Because once you open a door like that, there's no way to unsee what's on the other side. And every answer seems to double the number of questions. The audio file sat on my desktop like a loaded gun. Listen now, Claire.mp3. I hesitated for a full minute staring at it. The house was silent except for the occasional bark from Marvin in the next room. I put on my headphones and pressed play. At first, it was just background noise, static, someone breathing, a faint shuffle. Then Claire's voice, clear as if she were standing behind me. We have to move the funds. I don't care about the risk. If it leaks, I'll deny everything. No one will believe her anyway. She's a nobody." My heart hammered in my chest. The rest of the recording was a rushed, whispered conversation. Claire and another man. I didn't recognize his voice, but he spoke in clipped tones, using banking jargon and code words. He mentioned wire transfers, dummy companies, timelines. Then Claire again, colder than I'd ever heard her. "If she asks questions, we deal with it. Family or not." The call ended abruptly, replaced by a brief silence. Then, almost as if someone had anticipated my shock, another voice cut in. "Emma, if you're listening, it's time to decide. Run or find the truth. Your next step won't go unnoticed." My hand trembled as I took off the headphones. My sister was involved in something criminal, and someone was daring me to pursue it. But who sent the recording? And who was watching? I spent the next hours scouring every detail of the documents I'd found. Property sales in Nevada and Arizona, cash movements through shell companies in the Caymans, huge consulting fees for strategic planning. Every piece pointed to something much larger: laundering, fraud, maybe worse. I created a hidden folder, saved copies, and set up encrypted backups just in case. By midnight, I was exhausted and jumpy. Every car that passed outside made me tense. Every ping of my phone felt like a threat. I checked the locks 3 times before going to bed. That night, I dreamed of masks. My family at the dinner table, each wearing someone else's face. When I woke up, it was still dark, and my phone flashed with a new notification. "Unknown sender. You're getting close. Don't trust anyone, even the police." My breath caught. Was I being paranoid? Or was someone inside the investigation, manipulating both sides? Suddenly, I remembered the first email. "You deserve to know what's behind the facade of success." What if this wasn't about Claire at all? What if I'd stumbled into something so tangled that neither justice nor loyalty would save me? I reached for my encrypted folder to double-check my files. It was empty. Chapter 4. Everything collapses. Betrayal and the moment of despair. The world can fall apart in a single heartbeat, and you only realize it when it's already too late to brace yourself. I stared at the empty folder in disbelief, my mind racing for explanations. Virus, hacker, my own carelessness. But deep down, I knew. Someone was one step ahead, watching every move, erasing my footprints as soon as I made them. My only leverage, every piece of evidence I'd painstakingly gathered, was gone. My hands shook as I tried to restore backup files, but every attempt ended in failure. The encryption was flawless, until it wasn't. Panic bubbled up, thick and hot, choking me. For the first time, I felt truly exposed, vulnerable. I had stepped into a game where the rules changed every hour, where every ally could become an enemy, and I was the one holding nothing but air. That morning, I went to work as if nothing had happened. The college hallways seemed longer, the faces around me suspicious, unfamiliar. Was it possible someone here was involved? The campus IT guy? The head of the department? Even my closest friend, Tanya, started to feel like a stranger. Everyone was a potential threat. On my desk, an envelope awaited me, unmarked, sealed tight. My breath caught as I opened it. Inside was a single photo, me from behind, walking Marvin last night. Scrawled across the bottom in jagged black marker, "You're running out of time." I wanted to run, to vanish, to cut all ties and disappear. But something stronger forced me to stay. I needed answers. I needed to know how deep the betrayal went. After my last class, I drove to my parents' house. The place was silent, a mausoleum of memories and ghosts. My mother was out, but Claire's car was parked in the driveway. I found her in the kitchen, laughing into her phone, looking as polished as ever. For a moment, I considered confronting her, demanding the truth. But I stopped myself. What could I even prove? My evidence was gone. My only witness, a voice in a recording I no longer had. Claire smiled at me, but there was a flicker of something cold in her eyes. A warning, maybe, or just indifference? "I heard you've been having trouble at work," she said casually, pouring herself another glass of wine. I forced a smile. "Just tired, I guess." We made small talk, but every word felt poisoned. I wondered if she knew what I knew, if she'd ever admit it. When I left, she hugged me tightly, her lips grazing my ear as she whispered, "Take care of yourself, Emma. You never know who's watching." I left the house feeling more alone than ever, dread a living thing in my veins. The drive home blurred into a mess of headlights and shadows. I wanted to call the police, but the warning in the message replayed in my mind. Don't trust anyone, even the police. That night, I tried to sleep, but every creak of the floorboard sounded like someone breaking in. My mind raced with worst-case scenarios. Claire finding out how close I'd come, someone else on the inside manipulating the entire story, my name being dragged through the mud before I could even speak. Then, at 3:07 a.m., my phone vibrated with a new message. Unknown. You missed something. The truth isn't on your computer. Attached was an address. A chill ran down my spine. The location wasn't far. It was a storage unit on the edge of town, one I didn't recognize, one I had never visited. I realized with a mixture of hope and terror that someone was still trying to help me. But at what cost? And could I trust them any more than I could trust my own family? Chapter 5. Return Stronger. A Plan for Revenge and Restoration. You never truly know what you're capable of until you lose everything you thought made you safe. That's when something hard and bright sparks inside you. A refusal to break, a hunger to fight back, even when the world wants you to disappear. I sat in my car outside the storage unit for what felt like hours, watching headlights sweep past on the distant highway. The address from the anonymous message glowed on my phone screen. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back, to call someone, to run. But there was no one left to call. The people I thought would protect me, my family, the police, even my friends, were now suspects, shadows on the periphery of this expanding nightmare. The storage facility was a row of metal doors, each identical, washed pale by the yellow parking lot light. The air smelled of rain and rust. I checked my surroundings 3 times before punching in the code the message included. The lock clicked open on Unit 17. Inside, the air was thick and musty. My flashlight swept across boxes, old furniture, a file cabinet with a battered lock. On the concrete, taped down, was a large yellow envelope. In black marker, EMMA. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside, evidence. Real, undeniable, the kind that could not be erased with a few keystrokes. There were original documents, wire transfer records, signed contracts, photos of Claire with men in suits I recognized from news stories about corruption and fraud, a thumb drive labeled Play Me, a burner phone, and at the bottom, a handwritten letter. Emma, you don't know me. You can't trust anyone in your circle. You're in danger, but you're also the only one left who can finish this. What Claire is part of goes deeper than you think. The truth isn't just about family, it's about what's been built in your name. A friend. My heart pounded. For the first time, I felt something like hope, but also fear. If a friend had gone to such lengths to hide this evidence, then the threat was real and closing in. I took the contents home and hid them in a place even Marvin, my dog, would never find. Then I spent hours with the thumb drive. There was a single video, grainy, obviously recorded in secret. Claire sat at a table with 2 men, discussing shell corporations, payments to government officials, and my name. Emma will never know. She's useful as long as she stays invisible. One of the men nodded. If she gets curious? Claire laughed. Then she disappears like the rest. It hit me like a physical blow. I had been a pawn. My low profile, my failure, was the perfect cover for them. They had used my identity, my social security number, even forged my signature on some of the contracts. On paper, I wasn't a bystander. I was implicated. Rage overtook the fear. I would not be erased. I would not disappear. All night, I built my own plan, step by step. First, I would make digital copies of every document and video. I'd upload them to multiple secure locations online with timed release instructions. If anything happened to me, the truth would flood the inboxes of every investigative journalist and federal agency in the country. Second, I'd contact the only person left outside my ruined circle, Ms. Ruth, my old college advisor, who'd once been an investigative reporter, someone I could trust, someone who had nothing to lose. Third, I would confront Claire, but on my terms, not as a frightened sister, but as the real Emma, the one who was done being a shadow. I knew her routines. I knew she would be at the family brunch Sunday, holding court as always, surrounded by people who believed every word she said. That's when I'd strike. I barely slept. My mind raced with what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. I dreamed of fire, paper burning, masks melting, faces revealed for what they really were. When dawn broke, I felt not calm, but clear. On Sunday, I dressed in clothes I hadn't worn in years. A sharp jacket, my hair up, the kind of look that didn't blend in. If I was going to set the stage, I needed them to see me. The brunch was at my parents' house, of course. Claire was already there, perfect as ever, flanked by our father and a couple of his business partners. She smiled at me, but there was tension in the room, a sense that everyone was waiting for something to happen. I waited until the meal was over, until the coffee was poured and the laughter had started to fade. Then I stood, cleared my throat, and placed the envelope on the table. I have something to share with the family. Faces turned. Claire's smile froze. I opened the envelope, sliding out a copy of the key contract, her signature, my forged one, side by side. Can anyone tell me why my name is on this deal? Or why my social security number is on 3 accounts in the Caymans? A hush fell over the room. Dad started to speak, but Claire cut him off, standing up. That's ridiculous. I'm not finished, I said, voice stronger than I thought possible. There's more. Photos, videos, and if anything happens to me, the world will see them. A ripple of panic spread. Claire's face paled. I saw it then. Fear, real and raw. The rest of the family looked between us, unsure what to believe. I was invisible because you needed me that way, but not anymore. Suddenly, a phone rang. Claire's. She looked at the screen and blanched. I have to take this, she said, leaving the room. A few minutes later, my own phone buzzed. A new message. Unknown. You're not the only one with a plan. Be ready. You have 24 hours. And in that moment, I realized the game wasn't over. It was just beginning. And this time, I wasn't the only player. Chapter 6, Triumph Without Applause. The new me and the old envy, victory rarely looks the way you imagine it. There's no cheering crowd, no cinematic music swelling in the background. Sometimes the world keeps turning as if nothing happened, even as you stand among the ruins of everything you once feared. After the confrontation, the family scattered, some in tears, some in silence, others just pretending nothing was wrong at all. Claire never came back into the room. Dad followed her out, and the rest of the brunch faded into a blur of worried whispers and sidelong glances. No one reached out to me that night, not even Mom. I went home alone, adrenaline burning itself out into exhaustion. But I had done what I set out to do. The evidence was out there, protected, timed for release. I was no longer a secret weapon for their schemes or a pawn in their shadows. I was the detonator. Now the fuse had been lit. The following days moved like a fever dream. My phone buzzed constantly. Calls from unknown numbers, emails from journalists, legal threats disguised as invitations to clarify. I ignored most of them. I trusted my plan and my few allies to do their work. Ms. Ruth connected me to 2 investigative reporters, and within a week, the story began to break. Corruption, fraud, shell companies, tax evasion. My name appeared in headlines, but this time not as a ghost in the margins, but as the person who had helped expose one of the most elaborate family scams on the West Coast. It wasn't easy. For every day of vindication, there was a night of fear. I slept with the burner phone under my pillow, checking for new threats. Some days, I was followed. An unfamiliar car trailing mine, a stranger at the grocery store who stared too long. I documented everything, sent copies to my lawyer and the reporters, kept a log in 3 different places. Through it all, Claire kept silent. She withdrew from public life, issued a statement of deep regret through her lawyer, and cut off all contact with the family. Dad tried to run damage control, but even he couldn't escape the audit's reach. One by one, the properties were frozen, the accounts emptied. The court ordered an immediate investigation into every asset in my name. I was questioned, audited, investigated, but this time I had nothing to hide. The hardest part wasn't the interrogations or the scrutiny. It was the silence from those I had once called my own. Friends disappeared, unsure what to believe. My mother sent a single message. "I wish you had warned us, Emma. I wish things could have been different." But she never called. I realized then how much of my life had been built around keeping other people comfortable, even at the cost of my own truth. For the first time, I let the old Emma die. I moved out of my apartment and into a new city. No more ghosts, no more family shadows. I took a position at a nonprofit focused on financial crimes. My story became a case study in their lectures. How not to build a legacy, how to protect yourself when no one else will. But wounds heal slowly. At night, I still replayed the final brunch, the look on Claire's face, the silence that followed my words. Had I destroyed my family or saved them from themselves? Sometimes it felt like both. Sometimes, after a nightmare, I'd reach for my phone expecting another threat, another warning that I hadn't really escaped. But the threats faded, replaced by invitations to speak, to teach, to consult. My inbox filled with letters from people who had seen my story, some supportive, others envious, some pleading for advice, others warning me not to trust anyone, ever. The envy, I learned, never goes away. Some people still whispered that I'd betrayed my own blood, or that I'd only acted out of jealousy. I let them talk. They'd never seen what I'd seen, never felt the terror of being erased from your own life. Months passed. The court ruled in my favor, clearing my name. Claire was indicted. Dad lost almost everything, but he retired quietly, as if he'd always intended to. My mother moved to a smaller house by the coast. My cousins scattered, each reinventing their story to avoid questions. At the next family gathering, a cousin's wedding, I stood at the edge of the room. No one quite met my eyes. It was as if they'd all agreed not to mention what had happened or to acknowledge that I was there at all. But I no longer needed their validation. I'd built a life out of truth, and that was enough. One rainy evening, as I left the nonprofit office, I found a small envelope taped to my windshield. No return address. Inside, a single photograph. Me at that final family brunch, standing tall, the envelope in my hand, everyone else looking away. On the back, a handwritten note. "Sometimes the only applause is your own." I stood in the rain, smiling, not triumphant, but free. As I walked away, I glanced over my shoulder, just once. Across the street, a woman watched me from the shadows. Her posture was familiar. When lightning flashed, I saw her face. Claire. Not gone, not defeated, just waiting. Epilogue. The quiet aftermath. 6 months later, I live a quieter life, still alone, but no longer haunted. I work from home, helping others uncover fraud, and sometimes strangers write to thank me for sharing my story. The past is no longer my prison. It's become a lesson I offer to anyone afraid to step into the light. My mother visits occasionally. We avoid old wounds, focusing instead on simple, ordinary things. Between us, there's regret, but also a new kind of understanding. I rarely think of Claire, except when her trial makes headlines. She never looked at me in court, and I didn't expect her to. These days, I measure success not by applause, but by the peace I've found. I no longer wait for validation from those who never saw me. I built myself, and that is enough. Standing by my window at dusk, I watch the city light up, knowing my story is my own now. I am neither the woman they pitied nor the one they envied. I am simply free.